boundaries wasn't a buzz term. It wasn't necessarily talked about. It's not that it wasn't done. It's just the language wasn't there. And we go through a lot of this when we talk about emotions and feelings in these episodes. When you don't have the language to describe something, it gets a lot harder to understand it and really dive into it and figure out why you're feeling this way or what triggered you and all those sorts of things. So having the language around boundaries is just the cherry on top of having Uber and Life 360 and all these different things that kids going to college have. Welcome to the Second Plan A podcast, where we take hard-earned lessons from the mats and from the podcast room and convert them into tools for navigating life's challenges. I'm Amber Hoover. I'd rather stick to the plan.
How's that working out for you?
Terribly.
I'm Ryan Hoover, and parents of teens need all sorts of second plan A's.
So many second plan A's.
Also husbands of Ambers. Just to be clear.
Also, there's only one, luckily. For him, for me, I don't know. So today we are moving on to our second plan A. Hope you enjoy the new setup if you're watching.
It's going to be different next week, don't worry.
The new old setup, oh my gosh, you guys, hopefully you're hearing this right now, and that'll be great.
Anybody want to vote us a podcast booth?
Oh yeah, so we got to have resources out there. Let us know. We have the land. On this episode, we are unpacking important lessons that are needed well before packing for move-in day. Our syllabus includes straight talk and hard truths that coaches and parents of college-bound teenagers should understand as we focus on personal responsibility, safety, and confidence. Are you ready for class to begin? I knew you were.
Like 40 seconds ago.
I knew you were going to groan at that. Also, yeah, I want to start off by saying this episode is geared more towards martial arts self-defense coaches who teach teenagers and young adults and parents of teenagers and young adults. Obviously, it's still a great resource for college-bound students to come in and listen to this episode. But we're not doing like a book review or a 1-hour sales pitch or anything. This is actionable, no frills content, just like the book is. And honestly, it's interesting because I was a little unsure of the book at first about it working. You sent me drafts and I was like, is this just your skeleton outline for the chapter? Like, is just this kind of the idea of what you wanted to talk about? And you were like, nope, that's the chapter. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, cool. And then seeing the book as a whole, I was like, oh, I get what you did there. So
This is the story of my life, by the way.
Yeah.
I present people with ideas based on a vision that I have, and people look at me like, yeah, that's not going to work, or that's not
how that's done.
That's not how it's done, or whatever. And I'm like, just wait.
Just wait and see. And I did.
So I wanted it to be, it's written primarily for teens about to go to college.
Right.
There's a section for parents, and obviously parents can benefit from reading the whole thing, and I think they should. Educators as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to write it for teens who really don't want somebody else to hand them something to read.
Yeah.
And so it was painstakingly designed the way it was to be as simple as I could make it.
And you did that.
Just under 100 pages.
Yep.
I labored over everything from the fonts to the spacing to the word count per chapter and all these kinds of things to make it to where bullet points, all of it, to make it where it's super digestible. It works together as a whole, but then you can also just pick any chapter and it stands alone without needing to be connected to the rest of it. And that was kind of, as simple as it is, it was not easy for me to do it that way. It's
terse. Like the sections are terse, which is how you maybe talk as well. But this is the point, this is what it is, move on, right. Rather than a 3-page story about something that happened to someone, this tiny little bit of information followed by 3 more pages of why you should believe that information I just gave you. And this is very short, to the point, quick, easy, actionable.
I did a couple things. one, I didn't want it to be preachy,
Yes. Yeah.
and two, I'm targeting an audience that is used to texting,
Mm-hmm.
used
Oh,
to
yeah.
direct messaging, so getting little bits of information in small chunks, small kind of sound bites, as opposed to, not that they don't read and consume information in that way, but for something like this, where it's probably not something that they're necessarily wanting to read,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want it to be a dissertation on how you need to live your college life,
Yeah.
So I took it from the perspective of people that are on their phones a lot, texting a lot, emailing, messaging, whatever, and tried to write it with that in mind.
I love how it is. It's little like for the TikTok generation, for these short attention spans.
Which was super hard for me to do.
Yeah.
It's how I speak.
Yeah.
But it's not how I write.
Yeah. Yeah.
I speak very succinctly and very matter of factly, but I don't really write that way. If you see the Incomplete Guide to Modern Grammar Guides, 8.5 by 11 is over 300 pages.
Yep.
And it could have been, honestly, it could have been 1,000 pages because it's much more in the way that I write.
Even that book is breaking a serious mold, and we'll have an episode, likely the next episode, on that one as well. But both of these are in stark contrast to what is already out there. Yeah. What's maybe the biggest or most important for you thing that separates this book from something else?
And to be honest, I didn't do a lot of research to see what was out there.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really care.
Yeah.
Because I generally think that very few people approach these subjects the way that we do. And so the little bit that I did look at, you would see things about what to do and what not to do. But none of it was really actionable. None of it was take boundary setting, for example.
Okay,
well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It's like when people talk about situational awareness. What does that
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And so let's talk about boundaries. Let's talk about, and I didn't want it to be a self-defense book.
Yeah.
Yep. I wanted to come in, so in our training seminars, we talk about the difference between self-protection and self-defense. Self-protection being, or self-defense, let's start there, being more reactive. I'm being choked, I'm being tackled, I'm being punched, I'm being grabbed, whatever. It's reactive. I am behind the curve. I'm already in a position of disadvantage. Whereas self-protection is much more proactive. Self-protection is, I am aware of where I'm parking my car. I'm mindful of time of day and how that might affect context with regards to where I'm going and who I'm going to be with and those kinds of things. I'm planning on the front end about where I'm going to go, letting people know where I'm going to be, those kinds of things, to where I am hopefully, if not eliminating, at least mitigating the chances of something happening to me where I actually need a physical response. And so I think, especially when we're talking about, sending teens off to college, it's really important to give them a framework that they can read and understand and put into action. There's 30-second habit building kind of things in here, and there's some really small things that you can do to make a big difference, and hopefully just avoid ending up in a situation that I shouldn't end up in anyway.
Yeah.
And so if you take something like boundaries, and it's pretty early in the book because I kind of wanted to set the tone early. I talk a good bit about it's okay to be rude,
Yeah.
giving people permission to be rude. And I thought that was really important, and especially for young girls, women, I think, because often it's kindness can be mistaken for weakness, or people take advantage of that, or whatever, and having kind of the presence and the permission to be rude, I think, is a big deal. At some point, I don't know if I said it exactly like this in the book, but it's if you're going to be hard to harm, that starts with your habits, not your hands.
Ooh.
And so learning to build in habits that help me to just go through life, live my life, enjoy my life, not be paranoid and, head on a swivel, looking around every corner, that kind of thing. But also controlling variables as much as I can, so I'm not having to rely on my hands. Because realistically, if it gets to that point, we've missed a lot, and we've probably made a lot of mistakes, which happens, but a lot of it can be avoided.
So I want to go back to boundaries, because the first thing I did for this outline is I wanted to look at the Google Trends of the use of the term boundaries and relationship boundaries and that sort of thing. And early 2000s, probably about into 2010, the word is not really used. It's not seen not like it has been over the last 10 or so years. And I think that's really interesting. For me, going to college, boundaries wasn't a buzz term. It wasn't necessarily talked about. It's not that it wasn't done. It's just the language wasn't there. And we go through a lot of this when we talk about emotions and feelings in these episodes. When you don't have the language to describe something, it gets a lot harder to understand it and really dive into it and figure out why you're feeling this way or what triggered you and all those sorts of things. So having the language around boundaries is just the cherry on top of having Uber and Life 360 and all these different things that kids going to college have. And which
we talk about all that stuff as well.
Yeah. And it's an important part of building some confidence, but you have to be careful not to tread into overconfidence. Yeah. Well, if things go bad, I'll just get an Uber home or whatever that is. So how do you balance that? And do you talk about that in the book at all?
Yeah. We briefly address all of it.
Yeah.
Because again, I didn't want to get too bogged down in like a lot of text. So the idea of, all right, well, I'm going to go to this party at this location. So in the book, we talk about establishing kind of a safety circle. And what that means is a select group of people that I kind of know I can rely on, people that I'm going to let know where I'm going to be, what time generally I'm going to be there, what time generally I'm going to leave. And then that way I kind of get this built-in support system, even to the point of if I need an exit, if I need an out, they can help me facilitate that if needed. So in a lot of ways, I think when you talk about boundaries, it's like physical boundaries are much easier.
Yeah.
There's a fence.
Yeah.
There's a wall. Here's my hands telling you to stay away. Those kinds of things. So when you start talking about emotional boundaries or boundaries as it relates to interpersonal space and that kind of thing, not just on the physical side, but on the things that people might say to me, And so being able to, one, recognize the difference in, well, this is just, flirty banter or whatever, or no, this person is a potential problem, and being able to recognize that and then being able to shut it down before it gets, because it's the whole whatever you allow will continue kind of thing. And so, especially in a group context where maybe peer pressure is involved, maybe alcohol, drugs, whatever, and we talk a little bit about that as well. And it's not, well, don't drink, because again, in a little bit of the research that I did, you see stuff like that. And maybe not to that degree, but it's mostly like, well, avoid bad situations.
No shit, Sherlock. If I could do that.
Around people that you don't
know or don't trust. Here's and I hate to jump ahead, but I know we're going to be all over the place regardless. You get to college and, it's a whole new environment. It's a new taste of freedom. A lot of them require freshmen to live on campus, and a lot of campuses encourage a group bonding, especially among freshmen. And that's so great and so terrible at the same time, because over a short period of time, within a couple weeks, you feel like you're best friends with these people and you don't know anything about them. You don't know anything about their lives back home, that sort of thing. And again, we are in a bit more of an advanced technology age, but even still, I don't know if I'd think, maybe I should Google this person. And, because you don't think like that. And so it's a reminder that you feel like you trust this person, but you don't trust you don't know this person.
And I think, I mean, obviously part of it, that's just the natural kind of.
That's part of what, yeah.
Progression. I mean,
Yeah.
We just, we're in Wilmington with my youngest, and she's looking at going to UNCW, and she doesn't have any of her current friends that are considering going there, and so you go from, you spent the last 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 years with the same people,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're dropped into a city that you've never lived in, and on a campus that you've visited for an hour, around people that you don't know, new schedule, new everything.
Yeah.
And it can be incredibly daunting. And so you want to find people that you can associate with and build a sense of camaraderie and all these kinds of things with. It should happen. But yes, the reality is, I don't know these people, and I don't know how long it'll take for me to actually ever really know them. And so having a kind of a guideline to let me know things that I should look for in terms of like maybe some red flags and that kind of stuff. My big thing with the book was I didn't want to just be super scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to give some kind of cues for things to maybe pay attention to, maybe look for, maybe try to put in place to preempt, because it should be fun, and there should be this level of new freedom.
College.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. And there should be this new level of freedom, but just like anything else, with freedom comes a whole new level of responsibility and accountability and danger.
Yep.
You don't have the same support systems that you had before. You just don't. Mom and dad are always going to be there, but now they're 4 hours away, or now they're 8 hours away, or now they're whatever. And no matter what they're willing to do, their response is going to be limited in this moment in time, even if you can reach them in that moment.
Yeah. This is the don't let your safety net become a hammock kind of thing.
Yeah. And colleges, universities, I think, have gone a long way to make them feel safe.
Feel safe.
And this is not just for college, but you should never outsource your safety to someone or something else. We were at UNCW, there's these call boxes.
Everywhere. Yep.
But they're all they're everywhere, but they're mostly right outside of
a dorm or a thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm as close as I'm going to get to safety.
To people, but here it is, yeah.
And even that, you had to hold down a button to speak.
Yeah, I didn't like that. And I realized you have to balance a little bit of you don't want somebody accidentally pushing the button and you're running around chasing every kind of call you get. But
what else are they doing?
Well, yeah.
So
it's a cushy job.
It's bad PR for a college or university to have any sort of criminal behavior. So I think they have done a lot to make campuses feel safe. That's a double-edged sword, because again, if you rely on your safety being outsourced to somebody else or something else in this case, because really it's something else. There's this huge mechanism. You push that button, I guess eventually somebody's going to come and show up. But
yeah, and preface all this to say we didn't look into exactly. It's not like we pressed the button to see. Oh, did you have to hold it down for someone to respond?
Right.
So there could be.
But what I do know is they're not going to appear out of
in
a second and a half.
And that's what you were talking about, outsourcing your safety. Right. This is a good thing to have, and this is a tool to use, but it shouldn't be the only thing you have.
It's a tool like any other tool.
Yep.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it's the right tool for this particular situation, and sometimes it's not. If I need help right now,
mm-hmm.
I don't care if they have a 20-second response time.
Yeah.
It's 20 seconds too late because I need help right now. And so the more I can do to kind of control variables as I'm preparing to go out for the night, less likely I am to have to need any of that in the first place. And so that's what really the book focuses on more than anything.
I'd like to talk about the goal of a coach utilizing this book, and then the goal of a parent as well.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to start with the latter, the goal of a parent, and it's because throughout this whole conversation, I can hear one of like my dad's key phrases that he said to me when we would butt heads, which was, "You don't understand the threat." And he was right. I didn't know that at the time, or I didn't admit it at the time. But I didn't understand the threat, but also him telling me there was a threat wasn't helpful either. So, parents are deadlocked. You know enough, but getting that information to your child is difficult.
Yeah. And as a parent, no matter how hard it is, we have to make allowance for the way that our kids, somebody else's kids, everybody's kids really learn is through making mistakes.
Yeah.
Doing things on their own, figuring out that was not the best of ideas.
Yep.
On some level, we hope, okay, well, if I say this, they will listen to me and whatever. And they may even have the best intentions of doing so. But then once they're in the moment, and they're around friends that want to do this thing or go to this place or whatever, and maybe there's a drink or two involved and those kinds of things, a lot of that can easily be put on the back burner and kind of, and as a parent, we have to be realistic about what this experience is truthfully like. No matter what we want it to be, and no matter how much bubble wrap we want to put around our kids and give them all the warnings and, whatever, the truth is, they're going to do what they're going to do, and the best we can do is offer them as much guidance as possible without being preachy, without being super dogmatic and hard fast. And I think it's super important to let them know that no matter what happens, they can always reach out to me. And if you need me, no judgments, you need to reach out to me,
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly important for us as parents to message to kids, no matter what's happening right now, if you need me, I'll be there. We're not going to have a conversation about why or what you were thinking or why did you do this, that, and the other. I am going to recognize that you made a mistake, you need help, done, I'll be there, And so in the book, it's towards the end, because again, I wanted it to be more focused on the kids.
Yeah.
And again, parents can benefit from reading all this, but there's a parent resource guide here at the end. It's the appendix. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
And it basically is like kind of a toolkit that's support without smothering. How to things to say, some guidelines, some ways to ask questions, conversations that build trust and capability. Is I think a really important one, and it kind of leads into some scenario stuff where you could just ask questions, But when you ask questions, you have to be open to what the answers are without judging. Because if you ask a question and you get a real, honest response, and then you immediately judge the response, or you immediately kind of bristle at the response, then either you won't get a response next time, or you won't get an honest response next time.
Well, and
this is hard to do.
You've really got to understand asking the right questions, because if, let's say your kid comes home from school and you always ask, "Did you have a good day?" Well, the quickest way to get through that conversation, if they didn't have a good day, is say yes. Yes, I had a good day. They say yes, and then you're done, and they go on. And then they also know that you want them to have a good day. you're not thinking, okay, well, I hope they had a terrible, so they know that they're going to make you feel better. So if you have a child that does want to, make other people around them feel good and support, and they're a helper and that sort of thing, then the answer is going to be yes, I had a good day, or I had fun, or whatever it was. And so not asking the right questions.
And I think as an opening, that's a fine question.
Sure.
But it shouldn't be
the only
question. Did you have a good day? Yes. What was your favorite thing that you did today?
Yeah.
Or, hey, like our youngest has been working at a summer camp this year as a counselor or whatever. And I probably ask 6 or 8 questions once she first gets home. Because she's like me, you kind of have to
draw it out of her.
out of her. And so I know I'm not gonna say, how was your day? And
she's gonna say good, and she'll be done.
It's gonna be
good,
and then she would be happy with just moving on. And it's not because she's trying to hide anything. It's just that's who she is as a person. Now, as a parent, I think a lot of times you can tell how they say good or yes or whatever.
Yeah, but only if you've been asking and paying attention.
It's important. I'm not asking how was your day just to ask it.
Right.
You know, I truly want to know, and I truly want to know about your day, and I truly want to understand what went on in your day, because it helps me to understand who you are and who you're becoming and that kind of thing. And so if I just leave it at, how was your day? Good. Great. And we move on, none of that process happens. And then if a year from now, she's not here anymore, and we're doing this via text, or we're doing this via a phone call, and the precedent that's been set is, how was your day? Good. We move on, especially in a text. That's just not going to be enough. And we haven't established these open lines of communication to where if I say, how was your day? If it wasn't awesome, they're not going to be inclined to say so, and because I don't have an immediate pulse on the situation, because she's 4 hours away, 6 hours away, whatever, then it might be weeks or months before I know that there was an actual problem. And so I think communication is, especially with teens, it's one of the hardest things in the world, but I think it's probably one of the most important too. And I'm not saying I'm good at it, I think it's always a work in progress.
Yeah, I can see that. So on that note, then, moving over to the coach side of things, talking about open lines of communication with teens, and that's one thing as a parent, and how often you're around them and what you can ask and when you ask it and that sort of thing. Now push over to the role of the coach. They see this teen maybe a couple hours a week for 1 or 2 classes, maybe 2 or 3 classes a week. You're a predominant figure in their life. Being able to be a coach without overstepping boundaries, without stepping over the parents, without putting yourself in the life coach position, that sort of thing. How do you manage that sort of coaching? And by the way, for those who don't know, I think people in our centers know this. Ryan is the teen whisperer. I take kids until about 12, and then I kick them over to him. So some 13, okay, and then mostly I'm like, great, you have them. At one point, you were like, let's do a teen class. I was like, cool, you go for that. They're my size. They're snappier than me. I can't hang.
I really enjoy working with teens. I don't know why or what, but I kind of know why. But I really do enjoy it, and it is a fine line to walk, because you're in this kind of a sweet spot where you're a bit of a friend, you're a bit of a mentor. You can play a little bit of a parenting type role. The important thing to remember is you're not their parent.
Okay.
And a lot of times with teens, we have an idea of why they're there. And if they're there for something other than get in shape, have fun, learn some karate, then a lot of times, parents have expressed that to us.
Right.
And usually that leads to a conversation about how, as a coach, I would like to handle that. So I set the expectations on the front end for the parents, and then that way I know what their expectations are.
Right.
If they come back to me and they're like, "Well, I don't really want that, or I'm not comfortable with this," or I will say 99 times out of 100, it is you do whatever you think is best.
Right.
I will say though, from a coaching standpoint, keep in mind what your job is. You know,
that's what I was trying to get to too.
With teens, with kids, and you hear this in martial arts a lot. You know, life skills, blah blah, whatever. And there definitely is something to that. There's nothing inherently awesome about martial arts when it comes to life skills. It's just how it's coached.
Yeah.
You do the same thing with baseball, basketball, football, whatever.
And I think we did an episode talking about that too.
What are your goals as a coach?
Right.
So when you're a martial arts instructor, self-defense instructor, whatever, you can weave these life skills into the lessons. And I do think there is just something inherent about the idea of fighting as it relates to a lot of life skills.
Yes.
The idea of losing, the idea of getting tapped, getting punched, getting a bloody nose, these kinds of things, not wanting to come back the next day because, I got beat up by a 13-year-old last time or whatever it is. So I do think there is something to that. And so I think with coaching, it's, first of all, figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your assets and liabilities are as a coach. Because if you don't necessarily relate well to teens, then don't teach teens.
Yeah.
I don't teach 4-year-olds. It's just not where I am at this point in my life. I don't. It wouldn't be good for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to recognize if teens aren't really the demographic that you feel like you can connect with on a level that is going to be beneficial to them, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But acknowledge it and don't have them in your class.
That's interesting because some teens I can manage, I can handle, I can talk to, I understand how to be what they need in their life in that moment. But teaching a whole teen class would not be what I go for. Versus you're on that side with like the 4-year-olds. There are some little kids in our gym that you're their best bud. Like you work with them great. The dynamic is great, but you're not going to teach that whole class. So that's interesting that we kind of either know that or found that out or.
Yeah. I think when it comes to coaching for this particular demographic, this particular program, whatever we want to call it, stay in your lane too. Like I'm pretty detailed when it comes to the information that's in here. It's terse, it's brief, it's concise, but it's detailed. I'm because I'm not their parent.
Yeah.
I'm staying in my lane, and then when I'm talking to the parents, I'm talking to the parents from the side of, I'm a parent of college-age kids, and I've been teaching self-defense, self-protection, safety for over 2 decades, But I'm not getting outside of that because I'm not your therapist. I'm not your psychologist, your doctor, your lawyer, your whatever. And so we've kind of touched on that in other spaces.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to manage yourself when it comes to not being the end all be all for all situations and all people. That's problematic, and it's caustic. It'll wear you down.
So on that note, staying in your lane, being who you are, being honest, open, real about what things are or aren't. We have had at least 5, maybe 6 that I can think of just off the top of my head.
I already know what you're going to say.
Parents who have reached out. It's July 22nd right now. And their child is going to college the first week in August. And they want mostly a 1-hour self-defense session. Now what?
Well,
now you just sell them a book.
Yeah. I mean, honestly.
But that's probably the best. Yeah.
That would be the best investment.
Sit here and read this for an hour. You could probably knock that thing out in an hour, I think.
Yeah. So, and I've told you this because you share these with me, but I've been saying this for years. That's fine. We can do it, but be honest with them about what that's going to be. That's not going to be an hour of technique.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be an hour of us having the conversations that exist in this book. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it just is what it is. As a parent, talking to another parent, and then as a self-defense coach, talking to a parent, I am not going to allow you to use me to absolve you of not having done the prep work for the past 18 years and then try to get me to do it in 1 hour so you feel better about yourself. And look, that may be harsh because parents juggle a lot of shit and they have a lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
And this isn't always top of mind. But that doesn't change the reality of you did all this, whatever you did to get them to this point. But now the truth is they know how to study. They know how to,
apply themselves, and
they know how to do a job application or a college application. They know how to do all of these things. But what life skills do they have?
Yeah.
And so if you think that, I use this example a lot. If you spent 18 years knowing that at 18 years and 1 day, let's say, your kid is going to have to play a concert at Madison Square Garden and they're going to have to play guitar. And the week before, you decide to send an email to a guitar instructor and say, can I get a 1 hour private lesson because my daughter is going to play at Madison Square Garden next week and she's never touched a guitar before?
Not going to go so well.
I can guarantee it. I don't know anything about music.
I was about to say, we'd learn how to fake play guitar and get her a backing track real fast.
Yep. The problem with that from a self-protection standpoint is, unless you're going to hire a bodyguard, you can't fake it.
Nope. But you're right. If you, in the time constraint that these parents had priorities, right? And they have continued to prioritize other things over this. And again, not here to judge. That's what they've chosen. And now they're saying, okay, fair. That's fine.
I understand why it happens, but I'm still judging.
Okay, cool. And now you want to give it priority. What we've done is we've been cool, that's not enough time. Here's what we can do.
Yep.
Jam pack all these sessions into, this is how, this is what we can do in this amount of time. Let's try to go for it. Yep. But if you are absolutely certain that you only want 1 hour for your child to prepare to defend themselves in a, potentially dangerous, violent, deadly situation, we're going to spend that hour talking about not getting in that situation, because that's going to be the best, most effective way to do that.
We're going to do 0 physical skills whatsoever.
Yeah.
Hey, you give me an hour? What? Here's the problem. People have been conditioned by Hollywood mostly, I think, to think that you can learn 3 moves and defend yourself. One, I find it incredibly insulting.
Yeah.
Again, imagine going to a guitar, they call them instructors. What do they call them?
Teacher? I don't know.
Guitar teacher, whatever. I don't know. Who cares? Doesn't matter. And saying, listen, I want to be able to play Stairway to Heaven next week. I need an hour. Come on, man.
Yeah.
And so, I find it incredibly insulting. It's so ridiculously unrealistic that it defies logic. What happens every year. Like there has not been a year since I've been doing this that we don't get half a dozen people.
I was about to say by handfuls, yeah.
Yeah. But it's like I've told this story before. Years ago I got a call or an email, I can't remember now, from a state trooper somewhere in the Northeast, female, wanting a course for small troopers.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, I can do that. It's going to be the same course that I would do for giant troopers, because there's no magic.
Yeah.
Just because you're small, like they're bigger and stronger. That's going to matter. There's nothing I can do that's going to change that. So there's no magic that I can teach your 18-year-old daughter that has never thrown a punch in her life, and now you want me to prepare her for a sexual assault or a robbery or a carjacking or whatever. Have her realize that it's probably going to be from somebody that you know, and you want me to do that in an hour? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much more that should happen about, like, conversation-wise over that. Back to boundary setting, back to preparation, back to situational awareness.
And look, again, I guess we are trying to sell a book, but I'm not, we would have had this conversation around this time, whether there was a book or not.
Yeah.
Because this is a course that we do every year.
Yeah.
In both of our centers.
Yep.
So we would have had this conversation regardless, but that's what I wanted from this book. I think there's literally 4 or 5, maybe at tops, physical things in there.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 100 pages, there's 4 or 5 things. And
I can list them.
Everything else is about giving students the best chance of not finding themselves in the worst case scenario.
That's the way we train on the physical. Okay, we're already in the fight standpoint. We're going to get more reps on dealing with a headlock or a takedown or a grab early than we are wait. Okay, now we're going to look at defending.
Right.
And it's the same idea here. It's not that we're saying, okay, you have an hour. I refuse to teach your child the physical skill sets because you waited so long or whatever. It's that we're going to tackle this as early as we can because we have a very limited time. We have a very limited amount of things that we are actually going to be able to impart to your child that they are then going to be able to recall when things get scary and terrifying or whatever it might be. And so we're choosing the thing as early on, and that's one of the more likely things you encounter. Because I don't know a single adult female who hasn't been approached by somebody that made her feel uncomfortable. Right. Being able to talk through that and manage that space, and
didn't have to kick them in the nuts.
Almost none.
And so,
or stab them,
it's not about, like you said, it's not about I'm refusing to do it because I'm paying you back for something. If your goal is I want to give my kid an hour's worth of confidence, feeling safer, good information, whatever, then you would be wasting your time, your money, my time on us teaching them 3 techniques that they're never going to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And
still likely never to use.
No, never to use. And even if it got to a point where something physical was happening, what are the odds that it's based on the exact 3 things that we chose to spend that hour on?
Yeah.
It just...
Yeah. That they worked with their parent or with me or with you rather than what it would likely be, which is a peer of their age or, or somebody much more intimidating or whatever it might be. Although you seem to be pretty intimidating with the college groups. But
whatever, it's just... If the goal is, like the subtitle here is, how to be ready, stay safe, and still live your life. I think that sums up what I was trying to do. It's not how to defend against the top 50 most common attacks,
Killer
that
on
was a
YouTube.
Book to write.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally could have just copied and pasted from the other book that I wrote, threw it in here, call it college bound, self-defense for college age students. Done.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's just, if the goal is to actually give them something that is meaningful and honest and much more realistic in terms of likely to happen, this is what I envision that would look like.
Yeah. So, kind of connecting this all together between coaches, parents, the student, giving them some of the understandings and instilling in them what you hope for them. My 4 to 7 year old class, I like to every once in a while ask them why are they in class, like why are you here? And they have some good answers.
Do they?
For 4-year-olds? No, I don't know. To learn martial arts, to learn karate, to whatever. Some of them maybe even get to protect myself, and I'm like, great, like let's stay on that. Why? And then actually getting to the root of why is really difficult. Getting to the fact that their parents love them and want them to be able to protect themselves because they can't always be there for them. And I think that maybe should be another conversation that continues as you get older, reminding them that you have the right to protect yourself. You deserve to protect yourself, and that it's, if it's a case of feeling like you are being rude or that you might hurt somebody, right, that's not a reason to not protect yourself.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, another reason that I wanted to do this, because I'm coming at it from a parent standpoint as well as a whatever I am, self-defense, whatever.
Expert by the state of North Carolina.
So is like, and we kind of had this discussion this morning with a group of teen girls that we've been working with. A lot of the things in here are things that parents would say to their kids.
Yes.
But their kids don't want to
hear it from them.
From their parents.
Correct.
And so I hope to be able to say things that a parent would want to say, but then they can lean on somebody else saying it.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it's familiarity breeds contempt kind of thing. You've been telling your kids what to do for 18 years. Now you're about to send them off into the free world. They don't want to hear your last bit of things that they need to do or not do.
Yeah.
And so this kind of maybe says a lot of the things that you would like to say, but now it's coming from that word you just used.
An expert.
Yeah. and so maybe it's a little bit more palatable.
Yeah.
To a teenager.
It's funny because I remember transitioning from maybe like late middle school years, thinking, getting close enough that we're talking about college and people are talking to me about college and thinking, I don't think I could ever live away from my parents. Like that would be terrible. And making that sometimes very sharp transition to, oh my gosh, how can I live with my parents 1 second longer? Like get me out of here kind of thing. And so, yeah, especially building up into that final year of high school, you know everything, man. You're ready to go. And so it helps to, but as a parent, you can still put them around people who are saying the right things, right, and your group of friends who talk and engage with your teenager and that sort of thing, knowing your friends' parents and what they're talking to, your kid about, their kids about, that sort of thing, taking them to these types of classes, choosing this over taking them to whatever else kids go out and do, maybe instead of going to the movies, or choosing movies that have a strong line that deliver a powerful message. You can still get that content to them. We intake so much information, some of which we're not even aware of. What are the ads that are coming up on your Hulu account or whatever, because those are, again, based on the shows you watch. There's so many ways to influence without it being you telling them.
Well, the hard truth about being a parent is you spend 18 years doing everything you can to prepare your child to not need you.
And then if you do a good job, the reward is your child does not need you.
And look, on some level, they're always going to,
Of course, yeah.
in air quotes, need you to some degree. But if you do it right, it's going to be few and far between, you know, and you're going to have to self high five there because, and probably do it between the tears, you know, because you're doing a great job as a parent means that your kid goes on without you, you know, and that's a hard thing to kind of come to terms with. It's tough.
Yeah. So the maybe last part of this that I want to touch on, oddly enough, is the beginning. The title of this episode is Prepared, Not Paranoid. And I think that's such a huge statement just in and of itself. One, not just because of paranoia is seen from so many people. They think that being prepared is a paranoia, that paying attention to things that have changed in your surroundings is being paranoid, that noticing the parking lot is empty at this place, and so when you go inside you're a little bit more cautious because you're like, this isn't normal, what's going on, it's the middle of the day, whatever it might be. That's not paranoia. And if you've grown up in the school system, you've been told to rely on other people are coming to help, don't do things for yourself, and so there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen real quick as you go out to protect yourself on your own. Yes. So I wanted to talk about this idea of preparation versus paranoia.
Well, it is a hard switch. I mean, we talked about early, kind of, you've been with the same peers for a certain amount of years, and then all of a sudden, that's not true anymore. There's a lot of things like that when you all of a sudden are not with your parents on the day-to-day. You know, you're at a university where professors might not know if you showed up or not.
Yeah.
You know, people I remember having a chemistry class that had 300 people in it. Like, people don't know if you're there or not.
Nope.
Students
don't
know,
care.
Professors don't know. TAs don't know. They don't care. Like, you're a number. You might as well be at Planet Fitness. Like, it's no different. And so once you kind of cross that threshold, it literally becomes pretty much everything's on you, you know? And the idea that you'll be able to have readily available all these support systems that you had before kind of dissipates pretty quickly, you know? And it's not that there aren't resources and there aren't people you can go to and whatever, but it's not the same.
No.
They're not by your side regularly, you know? They don't recognize if you're a little bit off, or you're sleeping a little later than normal, or you're kind of, you know, you're not eating well, you know, these kinds of things that you've literally had somebody your whole life to recognize that and be able to kind of ask the right questions to get to the right answers and figure out what's going on. That goes away, you know?
Yeah.
And so you have to build these new support systems and these new safety circles and these new resources, and that takes time, you know. But it also takes effort. It takes intent, and nobody really, I don't think, really tells you how to do any of that stuff.
Yeah,
you know, it's kind of and to a degree, I think it's good that there's kind of a figure it out kind of component to it, because I think I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I don't want to turn this into a generational kind of debate, but I think the way that a lot of Gen X was raised is kind of the way to do it. The problem is Gen X ran the other way, and they raised their kids like helicopter parents, you know. And so you see the duality here, and the kind of the contrasting methods. And one side is very good at problem solving, and one side not so much. And so I think that on some level, having to get there and figure things out is important. The problem is you don't have the foundation to do it from, and so there's this shock factor, and so having something or someone that can offer a little bit of guidance, so you're not just thrown out into the wind, I think is important. And again, that's what I was trying to do with this. I didn't want it to be a 300-page dissertation on how to live as a freshman.
Right.
Just little sound bites, little kind of guides, things that you can practice on your own, or you can think about while you're,
little things that are going to stick in your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Things you can remember that you don't have to, get 1,000 reps on or whatever.
Right. Is there anything we didn't cover that you?
Oh man, I don't know. Probably, but it's. There's for as small a book, there's a lot in here. Like, if I just go down the list of chapters, I'm not gonna read them all, but there's a lot to what's in here. I cover going to parties, and I talk about consent when it's, kind of interpersonal relationships. I talk about hookups. I talk about Ubers and, like dorm life. And I talk about dealing with roommates.
Yeah.
And setting boundaries with roommates and how to have those kinds of conversations, and to do it earlier than later. Because if you do it earlier, if you kind of set the tone from the front, then it's not really awkward. You have a conversation about how you kind of do things and, what your expectations are or whatever. If you wait 6 weeks and you've started to see these things that you don't like, and then it builds and then it builds and then it builds, and then you have the conversation, well, now it's awkward, now they're defensive, and so just little things like that I don't think people really address when kids are going off to school. For most of us, it's been a long time since
we've done
it, and things have changed. Like, you have social media, and you have, Uber wasn't a thing.
Well, that was one of my biggest things. Yeah,
like, these things weren't in existence, and so I just think having a resource that kind of bullet points some really basic ideas for you could be really important for parents and students and educators too. I've shared it with a few educators that seem pretty excited about it too. So
good. I'm excited about it, and that's, if I could be as cynical as I can because you're my husband and it's the book you wrote, I still think it's a great book, and it's got those quick sound bites that stick in your head. Consent isn't a vibe. Consent is clear. Like, you have little things in there. And again, these are just short, quick sentences.
It's so hard for me to write. You guys don't even know.
Nailed it.
It's so hard to do because it's just not how I write.
Yeah.
Again, it is how I speak. Well, I don't say vibe. I don't use that.
Well, that one specifically, I was like, wow, I'm impressed with him for getting to that point.
But it is how I speak in terms of, I am very matter of fact, and I do like to speak in very concise sound bites, but that's not how I write. And I struggled mightily to get this. I wanted it to be under 100 pages. I think I got to like 94 or something like that.
Yeah.
On multiple drafts to get us there, but it did what I wanted it to do. Hopefully, we'll see. Once people start seeing it and reading it and reviewing it, maybe I'll think differently.
We'll know.
I am happy with what it came to be, and maybe there'll be another one at some point. We'll see.
If you are interested in the book, it is available for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but you will happen to notice that we have some sitting here. And so we do want to do a giveaway for Second Plan A listeners. No, they're all real too. So we want to do a giveaway. We're giving away 5 books to randomly drawn comments on our most recent post on Second Plan A. So if you go to Instagram, go to @SecondPlanA. We have a episode 31 release announcement. It's big, it's yellow, it's obvious. Comment with one thing that you wish somebody told you before going off to college. And then next week, by Wednesday, we'll announce 5 randomly selected winners. Yep. So if you haven't noticed, please engage everywhere. That's what we're looking for. But also, we want to give you free tools. We want to give you awesome stuff. So especially if this is a topic that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, that people sending their kids off to college soon, you recently went to college, whatever it is, go to our Instagram at Second Plan A, comment on the big yellow episode 31 post with one thing you wish you were told before you went to college. And that's our look at Prepared Not Paranoid. If you enjoyed this discussion, leave us 5 stars, follow, share, subscribe, all those things. And of course, go comment on the post. If you didn't enjoy this podcast, obviously overreact by commenting on everything we've ever posted. Thanks for listening to Second Plan A, and we look forward to growing with you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Let's be done with this.